Hey everyone, today we're looking at perk effects that used to exist in the game that were removed, and considering how they could possibly return. Let's get into it. Fog-wise, the ability to see undetectable characters. This was actually a bug, and not really removed, but I really like the concept and kind of wish that this was implemented into a perk. Maybe not fog-wise, but maybe another aura-based perk. Basically, fog-wise's base effect lets you see the killer's aura for 6 seconds when you hit a great skill check on a generator. With this bug, you were able to basically pierce through the undetectable effect, which usually makes it impossible to reveal auras. The benefit of this Fogwise bug was that you were able to see the auras of undetectable based characters like Wraith, Ghostface, and Shape. It was a fairly interesting counter to these characters, and would have been a unique effect. I originally thought it was an intended mechanic, as the Fogwise image seemed to show someone peering through the fog, and the undetectable effect makes fog appear on the sides of your screen. Apparently it was a bug though. Balanced landing, the ability to negate the stagger effect when falling. This is an effect that I think a lot of people would actually like to see return, as it was a really nice pairing with other exhaustion perks, but also a great passive effect for an exhaustion perk that is otherwise underutilized and not even viable on lots of maps. On some maps it only has a couple of areas it's even viable in, and even then, they aren't necessarily good ones. What passive stagger did was allow balanced landing's anti-stagger effect you get when falling apply to both when you weren't exhausted but also when you were exhausted, making it a generally more well-rounded perk that was more of a utility and chase assist perk than it was for chase distance. I personally like this idea of exhaustion perks having a wider spectrum of things to be used for. Another possibility for reintroducing this effect is that balanced landing gets reworked and becomes a normal perk that makes stagger after falling removed permanently. With how many indoor maps there are now and deadly drop downs, it could be a genuinely effective perk. Borrowed time, double endurance effect. This is a very old effect on the original version of Borrowed Time. Simply put, Borrowed Time would apply its endurance status to both the person unhooking and the person being unhooked. However, it would only work once per trial. This will be a controversial suggestion, I imagine, but I think this would be a great effect to make Borrowed Time a bit more viable, ever since it became base kit. It could be a much more nerfed effect to its original state, with maybe only a short endurance effect for the unhooker, say 4 seconds to the person being unhooked, getting 16 or something. A once per trial activation could also make it a really interesting perk for clutch plays, and generally just create some interesting moments. Barbecue and chili and We're Gonna Live Forever, BP bonuses from perks. This is maybe a more obvious one, and one that people seemed a little irked about when it got removed. A bunch of old perks, but most prominently these two, gave a BP bonus after the trial, or during the trial, to score events or overall score. I thought this was an interesting thing that could have been kept in the game in some way, particularly for some perks that were much more situational and niche. I think an extra reward could be a great benefit. We're Gonna Live Forever was also nice as it encouraged altruism. Maybe with a rework, BP bonuses on perks could be reintroduced somehow, or maybe as a more general thing, where all healing perks could provide a small bonus to healing score events or something. Hex Ruin, unique skill checks and skill check regression. This is referring to the old version of Ruin, where the skill checks were red, and when you hit the good part of the skill check, the generator would regress by a small amount, and when you hit the great part of the skill check, the generator would not regress. This was a cool mechanic, and although it may not be the best idea to reintroduce onto Ruin, I like the idea of the effect and think it's a cool one. It's a shame it isn't utilized in any way. Maybe for some of the more underutilized or unused regression perks, it could be added. It could even be another option for difficult skill check based perks like Overcharge or Oppression, giving a red skill check instead or something. I'd be interested to hear ideas on this one. I just think they were such a cool idea and a unique version of skill checks, and it's a shame they are gone entirely. Lightborn, Dimmed Vision. Okay, so you may not know about this one, as it's from a long time ago, but Lightborn used to dim your vision by 10%. Shadowborn also used to increase your vision clarity, which I presume just meant brightness, by 20%. Now this may be a bit controversial, but I actually would like this to return, for both Lightborn and Shadowborn. Dimmed vision would be a fair downside, I think, for the ability to completely negate flashlights and flashbangs, and it's also a nice lore aspect to it. On the flip side, I think in addition to Shadowborn's simple POV increase, an increase to screen brightness could be a nice addition, at a simple 10% extra. Shadowborn also used to have the downsides of being blinded by flashlights faster, and having a longer recovery. That part I don't think should return. Hoarder, lower chest odds. This is an odd one, and was only around after the release of patch 4.4.0 until 4.4.1, which was a measly 7 days, so it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if you were never even aware of this, especially as it's a perk that belongs to twins. Hoarder is a perk that adds additional chests into the trial, and gives a noise notification when a survivor opens a chest or picks up an item within 64 meters of your location. Nowadays its usages mainly come on characters with item related powers like Pinhead with his box, and Nemesis or Wesker with their infection repellents. Hoarder originally had the effect of lowering chest odds across the board. It was an interesting trade-off, I think, to make all chests weaker, despite adding additional chests. It was weird I thought that they removed it, and I think if I remember correctly, it was down to a bug. Effects like this are very unique, which is really why I like the concept and wish it had stuck around. Boons, overlapping boon radiuses. This one I imagine will be very controversial, however I really don't think in the game's current state and with the current state of boons that it would be as powerful as it was when boons first released. When boons first released, I believe on maps like The Game, you were able to get up to 3 or 4 Circle of Healing boons overlapping, which gave you like 400% healing speed or something crazy like that. It allowed survivors to keep games going on forever, as they could heal faster than they could be hit. However, with boons being nerfed, with their radiuses being smaller, and the only one that's even used at all really being Circle, I think this effect could be interesting to return. Maybe it would need to return with some stipulations though, or some form of cap, like a maximum of 2 boons overlapping or stacking with their effects. For boon perks like Dark Theory, it could be interesting to gain a 4% boost to speed instead of 2, with a coordinated double boon placement. It would hardly be overpowered, and there would be very few spots it would be doable in, further requiring coordination. So I actually think it could be an interesting effect to bring back. Alright, well that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed. Thanks, and goodbye.